This video contains spoilers for a game that is months old at this point, so if you don't want any of that, then you can go play the game and come back to this video whenever you can. Another disclaimer to make is that my game got corrupted just before I got to the final boss. I know, it's brutal. However, my thoughts and opinions are relatively unchanged. Enjoy the video! Yeah, so I was originally going to film the opening for this video outside in my backyard in the tall grass I've got, but my camera can't handle the overexposure of the sunlight, not unlike the average Valorant player. What? This game is broken. That's me. That's me. I wanted to do some thinking, but I also have a bag of trail mix here. You know what it is. It's a mixed bag of mostly nuts and the occasional sweet thing mixed inside to give a juxtaposition to the saltiness of the experience. I like trail mix. It's never been like a go-to snack for me, but if it's there, I'll probably eat it. I don't have it with me right now, obviously, but my favorite is this kind where instead of M&Ms and raisins, you get peanut butter cups and dried cherries. I like it, it's pretty good. I can pound an entire, gallon of that stuff. But like I said, it's not a perfect snack because sometimes you'll be macking on the bag of the stuff and you pull out a handful and it's all just nuts and raisins. There are no M&Ms or peanut butter cups, and you have to eat them because you need to finish the bag, so you're just bombarded with this overindulgence in the salt, and you kind of just shrivel up and feel the inside of yourself just want to die. But such is life. Sometimes you have handfuls of really salty experiences, but other times you have handfuls of really sweet ones that feel good to have. I mean, where do you think the phrase mixed bag has come from? Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is— oh boy, where do I begin? Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are the two latest entries in the ever-expanding Pokemon franchise of games, and they are one of the Pokemon games of all time. To give you some background, I played my first Pokemon game back in 2015 after the release of Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. My first introduction to the Pokemon franchise was back when Pokemon X and Y were the newest games, but I was never able to get my hands on them. But when Oraz released, it was the first time I ever bought a Pokemon game with my hard-earned allowance, and as soon as I popped that cartridge into my ever-decaying red Nintendo 3DS, I was immersed into a world which literally altered the course of my life. I was probably on track to becoming like a normal human being, and then I played this game, and now I'm like a nerd who plays D&D and stuff. I mean, this game was everything to me. The characters, the landscapes, the story, my team. It was the greatest game I ever played as a 10-year-old. And ever since, I've loved Pokemon. I read the Adventures manga, I've played almost every mainline entry in the series, I've watched all the way up to the Advanced series and the anime. My first anime I ever watched as it aired in Japan was Pokemon X and Y, and I mean, I have this thing. But for a while there, I feel like I've been weirdly disconnected from this series. I played Sun and Moon and thought they were good, and the last one I played was Sword and Shield, but like for many, it made me really upset and kind of represents the exact nexus point for when everything went wrong. But ever since, I haven't really cared as much about this series as my friends did. And sure, maybe it's that I'm growing up, but I played through Fire Red for the first time and I didn't finish it. I watched my friend play Arceus, but didn't really care, and I saw that Scarlet and Violet were coming out, but didn't even notice they were out till the day it happened. And oh boy, did I notice. Which is why I picked it up within the next week. I guess the easiest way to begin this video is by addressing the elephant in the room, or a Don fan, or Copperaja. Yeah, obviously I'm talking about the graphics. Oh my god! This game looks bad! It's honestly quite impressive how bad this game looks from a company which could probably buy the state of Ohio with the profits of just one holiday season alone. But the fact of the matter is that this game looks plain awful, and there's not really any avoiding that. It isn't even just the graphics. Technically, this game does not run well at all. Let's just do a little lightning round here really quick. NPCs run at an abysmal frame rate when they're too far away. The game's pop-in is just as bad as it was in Sword and Shield. NPCs will just show up where they aren't supposed to. Clipping into the ground happens way too often. Battle animations, which looked fine on the 3DS, don't look good here on the Switch, and the game suffers severe lighting glitches which are probably giving NPCs seizures on a daily basis. They also still suffer from a disorder I like to call Poke movement. This weird condition where the character's movement in the game is so stocky and rough looking that once you notice it, you can never unnotice it. So if you notice it early on like I did, good luck I guess. From an objective standpoint, this game does not look good and there's no getting around or defending it. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, which I will be affectionately referring to as Scarvo for the rest of the video, takes me back to a bygone era which I feel strangely nostalgic for and thought we had left behind. The release of Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric. But specifically, I remember a moment from the Game Grumps' Let's Play of this series.
Oh, he's just gone there.
Yeah, he's just the
Wait, he's up there! It's like... I don't know. I'm sure making this is hard, but I mean...
It is so upsetting that the day has come that I can place a Pokemon game and a Sonic game on the same level, and no one will argue with me. And I'm never usually the kind of person to bring up graphics when it comes to criticizing a game. Old games still look incredible. New ones still look incredible, of course. But the reason I bring this up as a major point against it is that the optimization of this game actively takes away from your enjoyment of it. You cannot go 20 minutes without a single thing going wrong, and that's being generous. And I'm not exaggerating either. Honestly, it's more like 10. I mean, make that 5, honestly. I know it accomplishes nothing to compare Scarvo to some of its contemporaries on the Switch, but this game is just ripe for comparison because of how underpowered the hardware it runs on is, and how incredible, or in some cases at least acceptable, other games of this genre look. Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild run amazingly on the Switch, which makes sense, they were designed with this hardware in mind. But even games like The Witcher and Skyrim at least run pretty okay on a system which is not only underpowered, but not what it was intended to run on in the first place. Areas of the game are occasionally hit with weather effects which will drastically slow down your game, which stinks because those cities will be afflicted with those weather effects for so long. Certain parts of the game decide to slow down in order to load in things better, but then still end up running at a snail's pace. And like I said, the graphical quality of this game actively takes away from your experience. It doesn't help that the graphics of this game are incredibly simple. Terrain is reused everywhere, models are reused, the geometry is objectively simple. If Scarvo had no bugs and simply just looked the way these games did, they would still feel like they should have come out decades ago. They feel like games which would have been acceptable on the GameCube or maybe even the Wii, but on the Switch just don't work. Something which suffers harder at the hands of the graphics is that precious open world Scarvo touts. The open world is probably the one thing I am the most mixed on in this game. On one hand, the open world is an incredible evolution for Pokemon to take advantage of. On the other hand, the open world? Kinda stinky. Now look, I'm not an expert on world and game design. I have played exactly 2 true open world games, those being Breath of the Wild and Spider-Man for the PS4, but I can at least recognize what those games do right to make its world interesting. To be fair, Scarvo is kind of a blend between the two of them. The municipal landscapes of Spider-Man and the environmental horizons of Breath of the Wild blend together to give off the vibe of Pokemon here, but in practice, it excels at neither. What bugs me the most about Scarvo's open world design is that there is absolutely nothing remarkable about the region of Paldea. Paldea is grass hills, rocks, and the occasional biome swap for the one town you're passing through. They don't take advantage of this open world concept. There's no environmental storytelling, there's no landmarks, traversal is kinda boring, and there's no places you want to just sit and hang out with your friends if you're playing co-op together. Compare these two games, they take total advantage of the open world platform by giving you all of those. Breath of the Wild's environments are filled with ruins which illustrate the fate the land of Hyrule was struck with following Ganon's rise. As you progress through the story in Spider-Man, the city grows gray and the atmosphere is violent, and the entire city of New York gets overflowed with the former residents of Rikers Island. Pokemon has grass and some rocks. Oh, and sometimes there's a Pokemon Center. Wow. There's no random houses, there's no tourist trap style areas, there are no sights to see, which gives the region history and makes it feel lived in, and these are all things which exist in prior games, so it's not like I'm bringing up this criticism out of nowhere. Every now and then you'll stumble upon these old towers or these quote-unquote ruins, but I challenge you to genuinely tell me what you got out of exploring these locations or what they mean for the lore of this world and the game's world building. Yeah, you can't. In Breath of the Wild, there are tons of landmarks for you to see in the distance. Finding areas where your memories might be stored feels like a reward for simply just walking around. But as you continue to play the game, you become a pro and know exactly which side of the country you're in just by spotting said landmarks. In Spider-Man, there are landmarks everywhere, both real and fictional. You know exactly where you are because, oh look, there's Central Park. Oh look, it's the Flatiron Building. There's Avengers Tower, and right there in Greenwich is the Sanctum Sanctorum. You feel like a tourist in this world. In Pokemon, there are no landmarks. Can you tell me where this is? What about this place? What about this one? Alright, now I know what you're thinking. Jared, you kinda just picked 3 places on the map that are kinda close to each other, didn't you? You're trying to goat me. No, I'm not. These are all in different parts of the country. I bet you feel like a real fool now, don't you? Granted, there are certain areas which stand out, such as this bamboo forest and this flower field, but these areas are minimal when compared to the large grassy landscapes where nothing exists. It also doesn't help that you're in these environments for like 5 minutes, then you challenge something, and then you just leave. And yeah, getting around this world is admittedly kind of a cool idea. Hey, let's just do something completely wacky and start the player off with the box legendary. And as you play the game, you complete the story more, and more abilities for your box legendary are unlocked, which then unlocks an astounding one part of the map. Most of the entire map can be accessed with just unlocking one of these abilities, which is literally just to jump higher than you usually do. Yay! Look what my Pokemon can do, Mob. Sure, maybe you need the swimming ability, but as for everything else, it's completely irrelevant. If all you want to do is become the champion, you only really need to beat the big bird titan, and boom, you're golden. Entire gym challenge can be sped-run from there. What sucks the most about this open world, however, is that the game actively lies to you about how to get around it. In the opening minutes of the game, the characters go out of their way to tell you, don't let anyone influence how you play this game. Play it the exact way you want to and do the things that you are interested in. If you want to become champion, go ahead. If you want to take down the evil team, go ahead. If you want to just beat up the big Pokemon and make sandwiches with your buddy, the objective best choice, go right along. But the problem is, like I said, you actually need to defeat the Titans. You need to take down Team Star. You need to become champion in order to enter the endgame. Which, yeah, that makes sense, but when the mission statement of your game is do whatever you want, that seems completely contradictory. If you took that sentiment of doing whatever you want to heart and actually pursued only one part of the story and need to find yourself going back to the other parts, sorry to say it, the rest of the game is just not gonna be fun. Let's just say that you partook in the challenging of the gyms and got your Pokemon swole as hell. Then fighting the Titans isn't gonna be fun. Taking down Team Star isn't gonna be fun, vice versa, whatever. And this is because the game does the stupidest thing it possibly could have by not implementing an auto-leveling system. I know. When I found this out, I was so confused. There were entire sections of the game where it was just way too easy, and other sections which were way too difficult. And I was lucky to have been relatively close to the quote-unquote correct order you're supposed to play it in, but there were just entire points of the game where I felt genuinely upset to know that I was over-leveled for an area. When I had a conversation with a friend about the different paths we were taking in the game, I eventually brought up to him that the third gym leader in my playthrough was Larry, only for him to respond, "Larry isn't the third gym leader." He was right. He's the 5th. 11th encounter overall. By the time I got to Larry, my Pokemon were sitting at around the level 35 range, but by then there were at least 6 story points I hadn't interacted with yet because I was still under the impression that auto-leveling was a thing, and this game was actually just challenging, something I was completely welcome to after the cakewalk that Sword and Shield were. Only to feel the disappointment when I found out that the final gym leader I had to face was supposed to be the second one. By not implementing in place the auto-leveling system, you both disappoint and confuse players who don't know that there isn't one. Go where you want, they say. Do what you want, they say. But players will take this to heart and not realize that there is a hierarchy of power lingering within this game. How disappointing is it to start on the right side of the game and loop your way in a circle to where you started, only to realize you peaked halfway through this game? The open world doesn't account for this, and it just feels so sloppy and unsatisfying. You're not going to be challenged unless you take this nightmare of a path which sends you on a wild goose chase across the country, finding that next thing which is going to give you a challenge, instead of traversing it the way you want to, like they told you to. Despite all the frustrations I had with the open world of this game, I gotta be honest with you, I think I actually had fun. I know, it's crazy to me, it's like I have Stockholm Syndrome or something, but I think I actually had a good time playing this game. It's easy to see that based on the marketing and box legendaries of this game, that the themes of Scarvo are that of past and future, which is kind of ironic given how stuck this game feels. The game has these themes of evolution and advancing, and that shows in a lot of the gameplay. Scarvo introduces a new mechanic to the series which completely changes how the game is played: auto-battling. Gone are the days where players need to spend hours in the tall grass, barely progressing the story because they overestimated how strong certain required battles are. Now, you just enter a location, send out your Pokemon, and watch your party gain experience from battles which end within seconds. To coincide with the auto-battling function, Game Freak added this nifty little feature called Auto Heal, which automatically heals your Pokemon based on a hierarchy of healing items. And in order to keep you exploring, you're probably only going to need to go to the Pokemart about 5 to 10 times in any given playthrough because you're always finding new stuff on the ground to use. Minor changes like this absolutely shift how you can choose to play the game, and if you accidentally challenge things out of order and are too stubborn to travel halfway across the map to fix your mistake like I was, you can just spend about 30 minutes grinding out your Pokemon and return to that gym, Titan or Team Star base absolutely swole. Another addition to help players out in the world are food items. These foods, many of which are presented as dishes native to other regions, give players a boost on things like encountering Pokemon of certain types, sizes, and colors. You can boost the experience you earn, the rewards you get from Terra battles, likeliness to find eggs while picnicking. The food buffs in Scarvo are wild, and when you pair the open world, auto-battling, and specific food buffs together, look hard enough, do a bit of research, and you'll find some wild experience farms. One of my favorite ones is this crater where the only thing you're gonna find are Golducks, so you can just spam a ton of grass or ghost types to grind out your experience. Speaking of food, sandwiches. I don't know specifically how to articulate just how great this feature of getting to make sandwiches is, but man, this is brilliant. You know that meme about how a game is good if it has a fishing minigame? Well, Pokemon Scarvo doesn't have a fishing minigame, but in my eyes it almost makes up for that with the inclusion of the sandwich making. It is a fun, chaotic, disgusting mess of a minigame that I had so much fun partaking in, especially when you play it with a friend. Multiplayer has finally been perfected in a Pokemon game, allowing for a party of 4 to just travel around the region of Paldea completely free of one another. Scarvo doesn't care what part of the game you're at, how far you are, or how long you've been playing for, or what levels you're at. At any point in the game, you and your friends can link up and head out, giving you a sense of adventure the anime made us hope for years ago. Finally, we get to be a part of a team of fellow Pokemon trainers, traveling the region, going on our own journeys, but occasionally being able to run into one another and make contact. It's something that PokeMMO has been able to do for years, but finally it's something that works in a real and official game. This aspect of multiplayer reminds me of Minecraft, where you and as many people as you want can just travel this open world and explore the possibilities, and you may or may not run into one another. You guys might not even have some of the same goals. Some of you may be miners, some of you may be builders. Me? I'm a good old farmer, just cultivating my wares. But there's something about just being able to connect to one another, to show up to places, to create something from the ground up and to be able to show it off, to find new discoveries, to expand your arsenal, to share your endgame experiences. That's the best kind of multiplayer, the kind that doesn't care who you are and where you are. Just go, have fun, make your own experiences, and share them with one another. Sure, yeah, I mean, it's fun to be connected with someone one-on-one and interact directly with them, but there's something weirdly human about just wanting to know that you two are connected at all. I played this game a lot, but the person I played it with the most was my friend Tony. I'm currently a senior in high school as of the time of me writing this, but me and Tony, we go way back, literally to the first week of the 6th grade. This man is one of the closest people to me, and I'd honestly call him a brother. Back in the 6th or 7th grade, one of us was really bored and texted the other on our school iPads one Saturday and asked if the other wanted to play on our 3DSs. And we did. We played Smash Bros, and he mopped the floor with me by playing Meta Knight, and then we just played Pokemon Sun and Moon. I had Moon, and he had Sun. But back then, the only thing that you could really do with one another on Pokemon was just battle them. And we did, for quite a while. But that will always be one of my core memories. Just sitting down with my brother who lived on the other side of the city playing Pokemon on our 3DSs, laughing our butts off on Google Hangouts. But now here we are. After all we've gone through in the past 6 years, now split across the entire country, playing Pokemon again. But now I can actually see him, and we can actually watch each other go on our own journeys and show off how cool the Pokemon we got were. I genuinely had to hold back some tears while playing the first time because it unlocked this memory deep within me that I never forgot but didn't think about. I haven't seen this man in about 2 years, so to be able to be with him, at least in this way, that's strangely beautiful. Sure, we could always play Minecraft together, but I mean, we always do. But this is something that him and I have, and even though he may or may not remember this story the way that I did, I do, and it really makes me happy. To get to do something so stupid as literally make the sandwich from Scooby-Doo, that's something that I don't think I'm gonna forget, and it's because of the power of this game.
I don't think I put the bread on right. All done!
All done, sure.
Jesus! Oh my god.
Bread is floating.
It's just floating up.
I'm so excited to see how our Pokemon will react to this. I feel kind of bad because I'm feeding them the schlock.
Let's eat it. Yum.
This is disgusting. Another powerful aspect of this game, which I'm glad has caught people's attention, is the characters. Scarvo has 3 arguably main characters outside of the protagonist, so let's just start with Nemona, your friendly rival. I love Nemona. Why? I don't know. I just think she's pretty neat. Ever since Gen 3, Pokemon has had a rival problem. Blue and Silver were selfish jerks who you wanted to punch in the nose, but ever since these 2 little idiots, you've had this ever-worsening line of rivals who range from whatever to I hate you. But I don't like to hate you. By far, I think the worst offenders of this is Gen 8. These guys are losers. Hop is a total blank slate with one motivation and reused animations which are completely played straight. He doesn't feel like a character, he feels like a computer, which isn't something you want to feel when this game is trying to tug on your heartstrings when you beat him in the end of the game and effectively ruin his dreams. Bede brings back the jerk rival archetype, but his problem is that his story and stake in the plot feel completely rushed and pointless. He shows up, helps dump lore, gets recruited to be a gym leader, then just leaves the story. But the true character that I think gets the lower end of the stick is Marnie. These 2 characters have things going on, but Marnie is just a piece of white bread that the Pokemon Company painted with black nail polish. She has no emotion, no stake in the plot, and has no reason for you to care about her at all. But these guys are the worst ones. And they don't get very much better from here. Sure, there are standouts. Hao is fun and jovial, Barry is a funny little guy, Caleb and Serena brim with confidence, but you may notice even the ones that are passable lack the one thing that they need to stick out in our minds. A personality. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Nemona is the most complicated character in Pokemon history, far from it, but what Nemona lacks in personality, she more than makes up for in likability. She has charm like Hao, is confident like Caleb and Serena, and is generally fun to be around. I saw a lot of people online saying that their headcanon for Nemona is that she's on the autism spectrum. I can see it. I get it, yeah. I've also heard people say she's like Goku, a funny battle-hungry demon ready to quench her thirst for war at any given moment. Like I said, I think this character is pretty neat. Nemona lacks a true personality beyond her battle-hungry tendencies, yes, but once you make it to the post-game crater of Paldea, you learn quite a bit about her. Her parents clearly put focus on her older sister, leaving her to feel neglected in a sense, and allowed her to do just whatever she wants. As a result, she grows into her own and becomes a champion level Pokemon trainer, and I think that's a really interesting angle to see this character from. A rival who has nothing better to do and doesn't have anything to prove, but struts her stuff anyways. And I love the angle of looking at her as someone on the autism spectrum with a special interest who excels at her craft. On the other side of the aisle, we have a character I have significantly less to say about, but I do think is an interesting one regardless. Pokemon is notorious for just having the worst track record of evil teams. First game's pretty simple, beat up the Mafia boss, boom. Second game goes, beat up the Mafia boss 2, Electric Boogaloo. And after that, depending on the game you got, the nerds want more land and the pirates want more sea. And the next one's, I didn't really play this one. After that, PETA. After that, Vogue. After that. And then you got a K-pop stan group. And then Penny. Penny is a weird character. On one hand, I think it's great to have a character you're so close to be the leader of an evil team you try to take down for so long. However, this character is yet again another sufferer of Pokemon rival syndrome. A bland slice of bread who has very little going on. However, what interests me about this character isn't their personality or lack thereof, but their story. Penny is the anonymous boss of Team Star, a shadow hidden within the walls of your smartphone. The reason Team Star exists is because their leaders, all of these kids, were victims of bullying. They were seen as different, outcasted, and ridiculed, so they come together to build this group of people who stand in the face of bullying, but in the process have become the bullies. It's a different kind of story that I'm glad Pokemon at least attempted to tackle about how abuse victims can still end up becoming the abusers, and how despite your past, you're not exempt from becoming the bad guy. It's a much more human story, and I'm glad that these are some of the themes the game is interested in preaching rather than just making more world-ending conflicts that for some reason you as a 12-year-old is involved in. Instead, here you are, trying to get some of your classmates to just stop ditching school. But that's not the story that really got me while playing this game. Neither is the one about becoming the champion. Nemona is great and Penny is fine, but to be honest with you, I think the story that hit me the hardest in any Pokemon game was Arven's. In terms of the hierarchy of paths I was interested in pursuing in this game, I was not at all interested in fighting the Titan Pokemon. I heard Titan Pokemon, the two words came together in my mind, and I remembered Dynamax and I wanted to die. So I only really devoted my time to trying to beat the gym leaders out of order like I ended up doing. But then Tony told me that the more the Titan Pokemon you defeat, the more abilities Koraidon was going to end up having. So I thought, why not? They'll be good for the experience. And so I began to battle them. The Titan Pokemon were underwhelming. Probably because I was only in the appropriate place based on my level once, but whatever. But after each Titan battle, you and your buddy Arven enter a cave where a secret herb which has been powering the Titan Pokemon lies. In the beginning, you're led to believe that Arven is just here because he's a hungry little guy, but then you're told that something a little bigger is at play here. He's hiding something. It seems ominous and weird, especially since this character, depending on which version of the game you have, has a strained relationship with their mom and dad. They should just call this one Pokemon Mommy and Daddy Issues. I've got no clue what Scarlet and Violet means. But Arven is ominous in nature, and you can't help but wonder what he's hiding. I mean, you know that this herb is being used to bring back more of Koraidon's power. It's unlocking all of these abilities, so what is he really doing? Is he like a spy for his parents? Are his parents the bad guys? Is he gonna be the bad guy? What is really going on? Defeating more of the Titans reveals that this entire time, Arven's motivations were actually just to help his ailing Pokemon get back in good shape. You learn more and more about this character, how for most of his life he's been left to fend for himself while his mother or father dedicated their entire life to their career and research. You learn that the reason he doesn't like the Pokemon you've been traveling around with is because this Pokemon represents his parent. It's a living reminder of the neglect he's been suffering at the hands of for what's been most of his life. Arven is so interested in cooking and finding new and powerful ingredients, not just for his partner Pokemon, but also because he's basically had to do it for himself his entire life. He tells you that Mabosstiff, this Pokemon who is so old and frail, is the only thing he's had by his side for so long. And the entire time while he's bringing him back to health, you never see Arven bring Mabosstiff out to fight. The only time you ever get to face down with him is when he's made a full recovery, and he wants to get back out there himself. It's a massive departure from a character like Gladian, another rival with issues with their neglectful parent, but with their Pokemon, they go out of their way to send into battle at any chance they get. The difference here is that Arven actually develops a personality too. He has goals, motivations, interests, responds to situations in accordance with his character. Things annoy him, things delight him. And he goes from being the angsty teen villain of the game to being this older brother type character who joins in fights the two of you were probably way in over your head for. And knowing his story, when he smiles, you can't help but smile. And given the ending of the story, when both you and the characters learn the true faith of Arven's mother or father, that hits you right here. He doesn't cry his heart out and he doesn't lash out at anyone, but Arven is the most mature and fully realized character Pokemon has ever made, and that's probably even counting N. And I believe Arven works so well because his entire story is laid out from the beginning, and information about his story is given to the player at an evenly distributed pace. Nothing about it is rushed, nothing about it is unrealistic, nothing is too complex. He's just a guy. But while the game tells one incredible story, it ends up leaving the other parts of it kind of undercooked. I came in wanting to become the champion as fast as I possibly could, but by the time I got there, I just swept past the entire Elite Four and completely one-shot 2 of Champion Gita's Pokemon. That was even with a team that was wildly unbalanced. My team, and this math only makes sense in Pokemon logic, was a third grass, a third fairy, and a third dragon. My team would be absolutely folded if you even so much as touched it with a piece of charcoal, metal, or confronted it with another dragon. But regardless, I instantly became champion anyways, and in the process learned nothing about the Elite Four, Champion Gita, or the Pokemon League of this region. I know nothing about these guys, with the exception of maybe Larry, but that's only cause this is the second time I've seen him. I love Larry, by the way, what a Chad. And Team Star's storyline was just, can somebody tell me why every time I beat a member of Team Star, I'm hit with these Demon Slayer backstory cinematics? I feel like I just beat an upper ranked demon this way, and it's not very interesting. There are entire characters I spent most of the game just never seeing at all. I saw fan art of Dendra on Twitter before I got to the gym she was hanging out, and I thought, she looks cool. Is she like a fighting type gym leader or something? No, she's just a teacher. There are like 6 teacher characters, one of which is the sister to a gym leader, and I literally never met these guys in my playthrough. These guys are here but serve no purpose unless you go and take the classes that tell you stuff that you probably already know because you probably played Pokemon before. You're never gonna see them. But all that aside, I think it's time we talk about the ending. As I'm sure you probably know or could have guessed how I've already talked about Arven's character, but during the endgame sequence you're told that apparently the entire time Professor Sada/Turo have been dead and replaced with an AI which is protecting a time machine which has been pulling Pokemon from the past or future respectively. Sure, the ending and eventual reveal is kinda wacky, but I mean, Pokemon has been goofy with its plot since its 3rd generation, so this is whatever at this point. But what's great about this ending is that when you come into this game, you expect a completely standard plot with little trying to surprise or tug on your heart the way it eventually does. But when it does, it ends up really surprising you. I just wish this ending wasn't so rushed, you know? If we had been given hints, if we could follow along with the greater conspiracy as you play, if we could connect the dots on our own, imagine how much cooler that would be than learning about it in the last 20 minutes. But the ending gets points in a special regard because the final showdown and payoff of finally getting to use Kodai/Miraidon in battle after powering them up for the entire game and traveling the region with them, that is the most hype thing that Pokemon has done in years, especially pairing this music, which by the way was made by Toby Fox. But issues aside, for the first time since the very first Pokemon game I played, I feel like I've truly gone on an adventure. Sword and Shield felt like a series of unfortunate coincidences, but Pokemon Scarvo understands that a simple story and interesting characters are enough for a Pokemon game to really truly shine. Adventure isn't always randomly stumbled upon. Sometimes it is either seeked out or offered to you. Once you get to the end, you feel like a real Pokemon trainer for the first time since your very first games too. So I guess that's what they really mean by Scarlet and Violet. Shades of red and blue, which are different, yet familiar all the same. Every 2 steps forward is 1 step back. It's a phrase which I titled this section of the script because it reflects everything that this game is. And while that's still progress, this is the highest grossing media franchise in the world. This minimal progress mindset infects every part of this game. We've got this cool new open world where you can go anywhere and do anything in whatever order you want. But there's no level scaling, there's nothing to do in the world except walk, and in order to complete the game, you gotta do everything including the stuff that you don't care about and didn't want to do, and we're not gonna find an interesting way to make you care about it. We're creating incredible animations done by humans to give this story way more emotion and allow these characters to feel real, unlike our old ones, but we're going to exclude voice acting so they kind of just look weird, and the in-game animations will continue to look kind of lazy. We're going to give the game this really cool story and give our characters personality and traits outside of their motivations and goals and really flesh them out. But we'll only do that for about 1.5 characters. What we're trying to say is we're going to make the Pokemon game fans have dreamed of since they played their first game, but we're going to cut corners wherever we see them. Just need you guys to know that. Oh, and get this, we'll make the game look like it was powered by a little hamster in a wheel. This game is so close to being great, but it fumbles the bag so hard. There are fans out there who are in the confines of their own home who are making small yet significant changes to the game to drastically improve the product's quality.
Are you these three, strainer?
Not quite.
Huh?
They have yet to make their choice, you see. I do wonder which of them they will choose as their first Pokemon.
I know, bud. Me too.
And I mean, I get it. It's difficult to implement voice acting into these games. They come out in 9 different languages and these are CG cutscenes, so it's probably pretty difficult to do it. But it's not like the money isn't there, and whether or not the space is available on each cartridge is up in the air, but it's a simple fix to something which completely derails your immersion into this world. If you want, you can keep the voice acting in Japanese. Tons of games from AAA developers still do this, and it's not like anyone complains about it. Most people who are within Pokemon's age range nowadays are millennials to Gen Alpha. And I don't know if you knew this, but a lot of us grew up and are growing up with anime. My sister and cousins had no problem watching the new Spy Family or Demon Slayer episodes in Japanese, so I don't think that an anime episode's worth of time in cutscenes is really gonna bother them. It's like Bong Joon-ho said, once you overcome the 1-inch tall barrier of subtitles, you will be introduced to so many more amazing films. Just swap out films for video games. If you want, you can just keep it in Japanese and English and just have the characters grunt and make anime noises outside the formal cutscenes. But Persona has full voice acting inside and outside of cutscenes. So why sell yourself short here? That was really hard to say. Why sell yourself short here? Why sell yourself short here? It just frustrates me how close we were to creating the perfect Pokemon game. When somebody told me that this new game, outside of its performance and technical issues, was actually pretty good, I hesitated to believe them. But there are fractions and fragments of really good things shining through the cracks. This is the most I've ever bonded with my Pokemon in any playthrough I've ever had. They're just 0s and 1s, but by the end I actually really cared about these idiots. Same with these ones. What I want to see come from this game is not DLC, but maybe a sequel of sorts. I would happily pay $60 for a sequel where we see all the characters we know and love, maybe like 6 years on, and see all the bugs of the game being fixed, where the world is the exact same, but there's personality to the environments this time, an expansion on the story set up in the first game, and exploring the consequences of the outcome of that one in this one. But this is Game Freak we're talking about, and they've already revealed the DLC, so that's great, isn't it? The fallout of the graphical meltdown that was this game is not an employee issue. The people who work on these games are clearly talented, who were told to rush out and crunch a game which clearly needed more time to be worked on. This is an upper management problem. The upper management which oversees the production of games and anime, trading cards, merchandise, brand deals, a manga, an esport, and a TCG bracket. And I'm sure everybody who actually worked on the production of this game had great intentions with this one. As the entire video has suggested, there are glimmers of passion and care put into this game. Things which fans have demanded, things which fans never even knew they needed. Risks were taken, creativity was in place, but the crunch shines brighter with this final product. The day the games dropped, the entire internet went up in flames. I still remember sitting there watching my friend complain and talk about the graphical issues of the game, and then hearing another friend say these exact words: Pokemon will probably be good in about 10 years. But it could have been great now, because so much of it already is. Those characters, those animations, that world, that feeling. Maybe I'm crazy, but I don't know. Sometimes one piece of media is all it takes for you to return to that comfortable place that lies adrift in time. To be able to find magic in all the smallest things. To find yourself connecting to a version of yourself you thought you left behind. Is this game perfect? No, of course not. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is a mixed bag, not unlike this one. But like I alluded to before, I love trail mix.